Hey everyone, welcome back to the Daily English Talk podcast. I'm Emma.
And I'm Jay. Thanks for tuning in.
Today's episode is one we know a lot of you have been waiting for.
Yeah, we're really going into how to describe your feelings in English today.
It's about moving beyond just the basics like I'm sad or I'm happy, right?
Absolutely. Being able to, articulate your emotions clearly in English. It isn't just about having a bigger vocabulary.
No, it's key to clear communication, definitely. Avoiding misunderstandings.
And really connecting with people on a deeper level.
Plus, I think it just makes your English sound so much more natural, more confident.
Totally agree. So today, we've gathered a lot of information to really unpack this.
Okay, so what's the plan?
Well, we're going to look at some better vocabulary for those fundamental emotions first.
The basics. Got it.
Then explore more nuanced feelings, the ones you might not have word for yet. And give you some practical ways to start expressing yourself. Sentence starters, things like that.
Oh, good. And you mentioned pitfalls.
Yeah, and also point out some common pitfalls to avoid. Should be helpful.
Exactly. I mean, think about times you've just said, I'm fine, when, well, you weren't really fine.
Right. Or wished you had the right words for what was really going on inside.
That's exactly what we're tackling today.
Okay, so before we jump into specific words, maybe let's just touch on why this even matters. I mean, is I'm good or I'm not okay really that insufficient?
Sometimes, yeah. It really can be. Emotions are just such a fundamental part of being human, right? And English has this incredibly rich tapestry of words to express them. If you don't have those precise words,
the nuances get lost.
Yeah.
And others might not fully grasp what you're trying to say.
Think about it, like if a friend asks how your job interview went.
Right, and all you say is, it was okay.
What does that even mean? It tells them basically nothing.
Were you nervous before, relieved afterwards, maybe disappointed, or even, quietly proud?
Exactly. Okay, it just lacks all that crucial information.
Or, in a closer relationships, just saying, I'm angry. It's pretty broad.
It really is. But if you can articulate something like, look, I feel hurt because I didn't feel heard in our conversation.
Ah, yeah. That's much clearer. It's more constructive. It tells the other person what's really going on.
And for many English learners, this is a real sticking point.
Oh, definitely. You might have solid grammar, good general vocabulary.
But when it comes to expressing those inner feelings, sometimes you just freeze up.
Yeah. It's like the brain just short circuits. People often default to really basic terms.
Even when they're feeling something much more specific.
Like saying, I feel bad. Well, what does bad mean? Do you feel guilty? Or maybe embarrassed? Or just totally overwhelmed?
Each of those bad feelings is distinct, isn't it? They carry their own weight.
Absolutely. So having a more extensive emotional vocabulary, it really does help you connect with friends, colleagues.
Even just acquaintances. It makes your English feel more natural, more authentic.
And it also boosts your ability to understand other people better.
That's a good point.
If someone says, ugh, I'm feeling so frustrated with this software, you get a much clearer picture than if they just said, this is bad.
Right. And that understanding fuels better conversations, builds empathy.
And, expressing yourself clearly can actually lead to more supportive responses from others.
How so?
Well, if you say, I'm feeling quite anxious about this presentation tomorrow, a friend might say, oh, okay, want to practice? Or give you some tips.
Instead of just a general, oh, hope it goes well, if you only said you were, a bit worried.
Precisely. So our aim today isn't just to, dump a lot of new words on you.
No, it's more about equipping people.
Yeah.
Giving them the language tools.
Exactly. Tools for more honest, clear, and meaningful communication across that whole spectrum of emotional experiences.
Okay, great. So where do we start building this toolkit?
Right. Let's start with what are often called the 6 core emotions.
Right.
Then we can branch out.
Okay. The foundations. Which ones are those again?
You might recognize them, maybe from that movie Inside Out. Happy, sad, angry, fear, surprise, and disgust.
Ah, yes. Okay. Often seen as the foundational human emotions.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So let's take them one by one and look at some alternative, maybe more descriptive words.
Sounds good. Let's start with happy. A great feeling, but yeah, the word itself can be a bit basic sometimes.
It can. So instead of just I'm happy, you could say I'm feeling good today, or I'm in a great mood.
Nice and casual, general well-being.
Right. Or if you've got a bit more energy, I'm excited. Works well for anticipation.
With looking forward to something.
Yeah. And I'm pumped is even more enthusiastic, like you're really ready for something great.
Okay. And then there's that quieter one you mentioned earlier, content.
Exactly. content. It describes that more peaceful kind of happiness. Calm satisfaction.
Let's put that in context, maybe an example.
Sure, like, I got some fantastic news today.
Yeah.
I passed my driving test. So relieved and incredibly proud of myself.
Ah, okay. See how relieved and proud add so much more texture. It's not just generic happiness.
Exactly. Moving on to sad, another core one we all experience. Just saying, I'm sad can sometimes feel a bit blunt. Or maybe not specific enough.
Yeah. So what are some alternatives?
Well, you could try, I'm feeling down for just a general low mood, or I'm upset if something specific has bothered you.
Okay.
If the feeling is more intense, heartbroken really conveys that deep sense of loss.
Right. And what about unmet expectations?
That's where disappointed comes in. It's a specific kind of sadness linked to that.
Got it. Like, I wasn't chosen for the team. I'm quite disappointed, to be honest.
Perfect example. It tells you why they're sad.
Okay, next up. Angry. This is one where the intensity really matters, I think.
Absolutely. Saying I'm angry can sound quite strong, even if you're just, mildly irritated.
So for those less intense moments.
Words like irritated, frustrated, or annoyed can be much more appropriate. They soften it a bit.
Okay. But what if you are really angry?
Then you might say furious, or even outraged if it's about some injustice, perhaps.
So an example might be, the constant noise from next door is really starting to frustrate me.
Yeah. See, much more specific than just, I'm angry about the noise.
Okay, makes sense. Let's move to fear. The basic word is scared. What else can we use?
Well, there are several useful ones. Nervous often describes that unease before something happens, like a test or a presentation.
Okay, anticipation fear.
Sort of. And worried suggests you're thinking about potential problems, maybe dwelling on them a bit.
And anxious. I hear that a lot.
Anxious is more like a persistent feeling of worry, often about the future, maybe less specific than nervous. And then terrified, of course, is very strong fear.
So an example could be, I'm feeling quite anxious about my upcoming job interview. It gives a clearer picture than just, I'm scared.
Exactly. Next up, surprise. If something unexpected happens.
You might say, I was shocked, especially if it was sudden and impactful.
Yeah, shocked works well. Or caught off guard also describes that feeling of being unprepared.
But surprise isn't always negative, right?
Definitely not. You could be pleasantly surprised by good news, or even touched by a kind gesture you didn't expect.
Touched is a lovely word. That feeling of being emotionally moved.
It is. Like, my colleagues threw me a surprise going away party. I was so touched and completely surprised.
Yes. Okay, last of the core six. Discuss.
Right. And this isn't just about bad food.
No.
You could feel disgust when something seems morally wrong or unfair or just generally offensive.
Ah, okay. So you might say, I was disgusted by the way he spoke to that employee.
Precisely. Or the violence in that film was really disturbing. That relates to disgust too.
Any other related words?
Sure, maybe more casually, grossed out or feeling uncomfortable, sometimes even creeped out if something feels unsettlingly wrong.
Okay, so as you can see, just moving beyond those basic 6 words really opens things up.
It really does. It allows you to express yourself with much greater precision. Helps others understand exactly what you're feeling.
And I suppose understanding your own emotions in more nuanced English terms can also lead to better self-awareness, maybe.
I think so, yeah, definitely.
All right, so now that we've expanded our vocabulary for those fundamental feelings, let's maybe delve into some more nuanced emotions.
Yeah, let's do that. Those sort of in-between shades that add a lot of richness and naturalness to your English.
These are the feelings that often lie maybe between those core emotions or their subtler versions.
Exactly. Learning these can really elevate your ability to express yourself. Take happy again.
Okay. We had excited, content.
Right. But what about proud? That's a specific happy feeling tied to accomplishment. Or hopeful, that happy anticipation of something good.
And relieved, that's happiness after stress.
Exactly. And thrilled is like an intense burst of happy excitement, much stronger than just happy.
Right. So you might say, I was so proud when my daughter graduated, or I'm feeling hopeful that I'll get this opportunity. You can hear the subtle differences.
You really can. Now, for sad, beyond the basics like down or upset.
We had disappointed and heartbroken.
Right, heartbroken for deep loss. But also lonely, which is the specific sadness of being isolated. Hopeless is profound sadness mixed with a lack of optimism. Letdown is that sadness when someone you trusted fails you.
And gloomy.
Gloomy is more of a general feeling of sadness or negativity, maybe tied to the atmosphere or a situation.
So examples could be, she felt utterly heartbroken after her pet passed away, or the constant rain made the whole day feel so gloomy. Paints a much clearer picture than just sad.
Absolutely. And if you're describing someone else's emotion, these specific words are incredibly effective.
Instead of just, he looks sad, maybe.
Yeah.
He seemed utterly despondent.
Wow. Yeah. Big difference. Okay, moving to angry, we had annoyed for mild irritation.
And frustrated.
Right. Frustrated often comes from feeling blocked or prevented from doing something you want to do.
Okay. What about bitter?
Bitter suggests a kind of lingering resentment, maybe from past hurts. Furious is that intense anger we mentioned.
And resentful, similar to bitter.
Kind of, but resentful often implies a feeling of unfairness that's built up over time. And offended is anger specifically caused by feeling insulted or disrespected.
Okay, lots of shades there. So I get so annoyed when my calls drop mild. Versus he felt resentful towards his colleague who took credit for his work. Much deeper.
Exactly. You can hear the different levels. Annoyed versus furious. And those deeper lingering feelings like resentful and bitter.
Okay. What about fear and anxiety?
Right. We had nervous for a specific event, anxious for more general worry. What else?
Insecure. That's a fear related to self-doubt, isn't it?
It is. And overwhelmed, that feeling of being unable to cope with everything coming at you.
I know that one.
We all do. Uneasy is a more subtle feeling of anxiety, maybe without a clear cause, just feeling a bit off. And panicked is that sudden, intense burst of fear.
So maybe I always feel a little insecure when speaking in a new language, or she looked completely overwhelmed by the amount of work. These words really help convey the specific type of fear or worry.
They really do. And finally, for surprise and those mixed emotions.
We had shocked, confused, touched, amazed. What else?
Unsure when you just lack confidence or certainty about something. And conflicted, that's a really useful one.
Conflicted? How so?
It's when you feel pulled in two different directions emotionally. You want two opposing things or feel two opposing ways about something.
Ah, okay. Like, I was utterly amazed by the skill of the dancers. That's straightforward wonder.
Right. But then he felt conflicted about accepting the new job because it meant moving away from his family. See, pulled both ways.
Got it. That's a great word. Okay, so here's maybe a tip for learning all these.
Yeah.
Instead of just memorizing lists, maybe try grouping them under the main emotion categories we started with.
That's a fantastic idea. Create your own kind of mental map of emotions.
Yeah. And when you learn a new word, think about where it fits. Is it more or less intense than one you know? What kind of situation would trigger it?
Connecting these words emotionally, not just intellectually. Thinking about a time you felt relieved or frustrated.
Right. Connect the feeling to the word. That should help it stick better.
It's about building an emotional vocabulary that actually resonates with your own experiences. Makes it much more meaningful.
Okay, great. So now people have, hopefully, a much broader palette of emotional words to choose from.
Right. So next, let's give them some practical phrases. Sentence starters. The kind of things native speakers actually use to express these feelings in everyday chat.
Okay, the go-to lines to start expressing yourself clearly and naturally. Sounds perfect. Stay tuned.
Okay, so now you're armed with a richer emotional vocabulary. But like you said, knowing the words is only half the battle.
Right. You need to know how to actually use them, weave them into everyday English.
Exactly. Sometimes the hardest part is just starting the sentence, getting the words out.
Totally. So what are some of these practical, natural sentence starters?
Let's start with a really simple but incredibly versatile one. I feel, or I'm feeling.
Straightforward. And you can just plug in the emotion word?
Pretty much. I feel anxious about the presentation. Or I'm feeling really proud of how I handled that.
Or even something more casual like, I'm feeling kind of off today, didn't sleep well.
Yeah, that phrase kind of off.
Yeah.
It's great casual English. It means you don't feel quite right, but you can't necessarily pinpoint why. Very useful.
Okay. What else? You mentioned one for frustration or hurt.
Yes. This is a good one for expressing that respectfully. It really gets to me when...
How does that work?
Like, it really gets to me when people interrupt me while I'm talking, or it gets to me when I don't feel like my opinions are being heard.
Ah, I see. It expresses a strong feeling, but doesn't sound overly aggressive or accusatory.
Exactly. Okay, this next one. It's not just about food. I'm in the mood for.
Right. You can use it for your emotional state, too.
Yeah, and what you feel like doing because of it. Like, I'm in the mood for something fun and energetic. Or the opposite. I'm in the mood to just chill out and relax.
Or even, actually, I'm really not in the mood to talk right now. Using it to set boundaries.
Precisely. Very useful. Okay, what if you want to talk about feelings that have been going on for a while, not just a momentary thing?
Good question. Is there a starter for that?
Yes. Lately, I've been feeling.
Ah, okay. So you could say, lately I've been feeling quite overwhelmed with the workload.
Or, lately I've been feeling much more confident in my English speaking abilities. That works too.
Or maybe, lately I've been feeling a little bit lonely.
It opens the door for deeper conversation about persistent feelings.
Exactly. Now, here's a really helpful one for when you're not entirely sure how to label your feeling.
Oh, that happens a lot. What is it?
I don't know exactly how to describe it, but
Okay. So that gives you permission to be uncertain.
yeah, it allows you to express that you're experiencing something without needing the perfect word right away.
Like, I don't know exactly how to describe it, but I've been feeling a bit uneasy lately.
Or, I don't know exactly how to describe it, but I feel strangely calm despite all the chaos. It keeps the conversation going even when you're still figuring it out yourself. That's really practical, and of course it's not just about the words, is it?
Oh, definitely not. Your tone of voice, your facial expressions, they play a huge role in conveying your meaning.
Absolutely. Saying, I'm fine, with a flat voice and a frown.
Communicates something very different than saying it with a smile. Yeah. So be mindful of those nonverbal cues too.
So these sentence starters are kind of like springboards.
Good word for it. They give you a natural way to launch into expressing your feelings using all that more specific vocabulary we discussed.
So the advice is, practice using these. In your head, maybe, then try them out.
Exactly. The more you use them, the more natural they'll feel.
Okay. So next up, you mentioned common mistakes, things that English learners might do wrong when describing emotions.
Yeah. And crucially, how to avoid them. This can really help refine how you express emotions in English. Don't go anywhere.
All right, so we're building a better emotional vocabulary. We've got sentence starters. Now, let's talk about those common pitfalls, things that can trip people up.
Yeah, even with the best intentions, some common mistakes can lead to misunderstandings or just sound a bit unnatural. We've picked out 3 key areas.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, overusing the word very with those basic emotion words. Very happy, very sad, very angry.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. It's not wrong, grammatically.
No, not wrong. But it often lacks impact. It can sound a bit simplistic, maybe.
So what's the fix?
Try using those stronger synonyms we talked about earlier. Instead of very happy, try thrilled or ecstatic.
Okay, instead of very sad.
Maybe devastated or heartbroken. And instead of very angry, perhaps furious or incensed or even just really frustrated.
Got it. Using those more powerful words just adds more weight and nuance.
Exactly. Okay, second common mistake. Using strong mental health terms like depressed, anxious, traumatized, too casually, just for everyday feelings.
Oh, that's a really important one. Why is that an issue?
Well, while it's great to talk openly about mental health, using these serious terms lightly can kind of minimize their actual seriousness. It can even be insensitive to people who are genuinely struggling with those conditions.
Right. So if you're just feeling a bit down or low energy.
Try saying, I'm feeling a bit off today, or I'm kind of down, or it's just one of those days. For general worry, I'm a little worried or I'm a bit stressed is usually fine.
So reserve those stronger clinical terms for when they truly reflect your experience or when you're specifically discussing mental health in a more serious context.
Exactly. There are plenty of milder alternatives for everyday ups and downs.
Okay. And the third common mistake.
Being too vague, saying things like, I feel bad or I don't feel good.
Because it doesn't really give much information.
Right. What kind of bad? Are you physically unwell, feeling guilty, embarrassed, exhausted, overwhelmed, left out?
So many possibilities hidden behind bad.
Exactly. So instead of that vague statement, try to pinpoint the specific emotion, even if you're not 100% sure. Getting closer is always better.
So instead of, I feel bad, maybe I feel overwhelmed with all this work.
Or, I feel a bit left out that I wasn't invited. See how much clearer that is?
Yeah, much better. You don't need to be a poet, just aim for clarity.
That's the key. Even a slightly more specific word makes a big difference. And really the most important thing to remember is that the goal is honest, clear communication.
Don't worry too much about sounding exactly like a native speaker from day one.
No. As you practice, as you use these words, they will come more naturally. Be real, be clear. That's what matters most.
Okay, wow, we've covered a lot of ground today. Should we do a quick recap?
Good idea. Let's pull the main points together.
We started by looking at why expanding your emotional vocabulary is so important. Clear communication, deeper connections.
Right. Then we dove into specific vocabulary for those basic emotions: happy, sad, angry, fear, surprise, disgust, offering more nuanced alternatives for each.
We also explored those in-between feelings, didn't we? Like relieved, frustrated, insecure, touched, showing how they add that richness to English.
Yep. And we gave you those practical sentence starters. I'm feeling. Lately, I've been. It really gets to me when, to help you start expressing these emotions naturally.
And finally, we highlighted those common mistakes. Misusing strong mental health terms and being too vague, and how to avoid them.
So I guess the main takeaway is describing your emotions effectively in English. It's really about striving for clarity and authenticity, being understood.
Absolutely. So here's maybe a little challenge for everyone listening.
Ooh, okay. What is it?
This week, try to consciously use, say, 3 new feeling words that you learned today.
Could be anywhere.
Yeah, in a text message, during a conversation, even just writing in a journal or thinking to yourself.
Yeah.
Just make a point of trying them out.
Good challenge.
Yeah.
And if people found this helpful, maybe listen again, pause it, repeat the examples out loud.
Oh yeah, that repetition can really help make these new words and phrases stick in your memory.
All right, well, that's it for today's episode of the Daily English Talk podcast.
If you enjoyed it, please follow or subscribe so you don't miss the next one.
And feel free to share this with a friend who's also learning English. It might really help them describe how they feel too.
Thanks so much for listening, and until next time,
Keep learning, keep growing, and keep talking.
catch you next episode.